Welcome everyone, I'm EroGuySensei and you're watching my very first hentai anime / manga review. For my first time, perhaps I should have picked more softcore title to ease people in, but what's done is done. And what's this about me reviewing both the anime and manga in the same episode? Well, I figured if I'm going to review adult films, I might as well throw in their manga versions as well, if I happen to own them that is. Now without further ado, let's start this review. Hachisaku Hachiwa Keraku Meguri Igyou Kaikitan is an adult story with heavy horror theme that tells 8 short scary stories of Japanese folklore and mythical demons mixed with hentai. No official English name is given for this title for all I know. And yes, I do understand that the name is quite long and very strange sounding for someone who doesn't know Japanese. Even I cannot offer a proper English translation for the title. 8 strange mysterious pleasure stories of Hachisaku is the closest I can call it. The manga was released on 2016 and it got film adaptation for part of its stories later on the same year. The author behind the manga is a person called Jyoka who got published by Moog comics. The film was made by Pinkpineapple. In case you are interested, I put all this information down in the description. Since the story features a demon from a real urban legend, I think it's a suitable idea to take a little detour and explain it to you. Hachisaku-sama, better known simply as Hachisaku, is a Japanese urban legend and a demon disguised as a very tall woman who preys on men, mostly young boys. She is often described as a young beautiful looking woman with long black hair who wears a straw hat and a long white garment. She can also appear as a middle-aged or even in rare cases an old woman, but the most common appearance we see of her in different media is the young beautiful version. After all, she is a seducer type of demon who lures unsuspecting young men to their doom. The legend says if you see her, she will hunt you down to your death in a few days. To counter her curse, the cursed person must be sealed inside a room for one night with salt and talismans to protect the area. No one is allowed to be inside the room with the cursed one, and the door and the windows must be kept closed at all times. The cursed person should not leave the room during this ritual under any circumstances. Sounds easy, right? Well, the challenge comes from Hachisaku trying to lure the person to open the door for her, and her methods can be quite creative, one which is seen in the anime. If the cursed person can survive the night inside the room without opening the door, the curse is uplifted. However, who can resist a beautiful woman like Hachisaku-sama? Would you say no to this? Oh wait, sorry, that's the wrong version. This is Hachisaku's true form. Not so pleasing for the eye anymore, now is she? Our male protagonist in the anime is the only one who sees Hachisaku as a beautiful innocent looking woman, while everyone else can see her true form. This in itself is terrifying to know. It makes you think what's truly beneath this beautiful angel. The anime illustrates Hachisaku often smiling, while in the manga she is more ominous looking character with gloomy dark atmosphere surrounding her beauty. But now that we know what Hachisaku is, it's time to jump into the actual story. Hachisaku Hachiwa Keraku Meguri tells a story of a young man who on a rainy night on his way home happens to break an engine on his motorbike and is forced to hitchhike a ride from a stranger. For his luck, a taxi happens to arrive in the scene, with young woman behind the wheel being kind enough to offer a ride free of charge. The man takes note on the woman's unusual height, which brings about a story of his origin. Since a long ride is ahead of them and there's time to kill, the two begin to tell scary stories to each other. The main story revolves around the man's obsession with Hachisaku, who also in her devilish way is obsessed with him. This is a great start for both hentai and a horror in my opinion. Though very simple, also very effective. The atmosphere is just right and it follows every step of your stereotypic way to tell horror, which I prefer over complex stories more often than not. Aside from the anime, if you play dark ambient music on the background while reading the manga, you will get one of the most thrilling horror hentai experiences out there. The unique art style and use of details and heavy dark shadows paints a beautiful world so grim to look at that it will leave you appreciating the art long after you have finished reading the manga. Almost every page feels like an expensive rare painting, and there's 211 pages in total to enjoy. When it comes to the anime, it breaks the darkness with vibrant colors. Even Hachisaku isn't that scary looking anymore, which is something I think the anime got wrong. I'm not talking about staying true to the original, but rather just breaking the character. It's not that big of a deal in the end, of course, but it is one of the many reasons why I prefer the manga over the anime. What you should know though is that I actually got introduced to the anime first before getting a chance to read the manga. Back then I remember enjoying it way better than now after rewatching it for this review. Many of the scenes seen in the anime stay true to the original, and if you have read the manga, you can appreciate some of the events directly referenced from it. While the manga tells 8 short scary stories, the anime has only time to tell 2. This is a shame because not only are the stories in the manga quite unique and disturbing even, the hentai in them is extremely delicious that should not be missed. Despite being horror, the sex scenes do not involve blood and gore, and thank God for that because that's my least favorite thing in hentai when it comes to sex scenes. However, I do enjoy horror as a theme, and surprisingly enough, it happens to be my most favorite genre in hentai. There is one story out of the 8 which does take blood and gore for its concept, but strangely enough, this one doesn't have any hentai in it. Even without the blood and gore, the art and the stories alone in the manga were enough to give me goosebumps. One story in particular was so disturbing to me that it left me disgusted for a good while after reading it. It didn't need any gore to reach a level which left me asking myself, what the fuck did I just read? Needing to reflect on my life choices for a while, I still ended up liking the story strangely enough. The fact that the stories are short is what makes them beautiful for me. It gives me a warm but eerie feeling like the author was right next to me, telling me the stories himself around a bonfire in middle of a dark night. Between these stories, the audience is always taken back to the car with the taxi driver and the hitchhiker, where the 2 characters take a quick breath before continuing to tell the next story. Unfortunately, the anime was not strong enough to immerse me, but in the manga, it almost felt like I was an extra passenger in the taxi sitting next to the hitchhiker. However, the anime did manage to capture some of the creepy moments from the manga. When it comes to the actual sex scenes, the manga illustrates them in great detail, while the anime offers less of that, but wins you over with vibrant colors and more pleasant atmosphere. Whether that's a positive or negative, it depends on your taste, of course. While the demon woman Hachisaku is the star of the story, the male protagonist complements her well by telling the story in his perspective from time when he was younger. And yes, that's right, even though our protagonist is a full-grown man, the time when the sex takes place is actually different. This is not to say that he was underage, but the only reason I say this is of course because of YouTube. If this is not your cup of tea, know that the manga has stories in it which actually star older characters, mostly female. It's a big shame that we didn't get to experience these stories in anime. Some of them would have been very interesting to see with voice, color and movement. Though I'm yet to see any hentai anime that would dare to show some of the stuff seen in the manga. I mean, there's some fucked up shit going on in one of the stories. The anime offers sex scenes between Hachisaku and the male protagonist, but the manga takes a wider range of themes and different characters. These include things such as monsters with tentacles, snake girls, women missing limbs, and even bestiality. And yes, they are pretty hardcore down to the last detail, but no blood or gore in any of the sex scenes, I may add. Obviously, the manga is not for everyone, but I would still recommend it for any fan of horror despite some of its disturbing scenes, simply because the ones that are not disturbing can easily win you over. When it comes to the anime, it tells a solid story and stays true to the manga to a limit it has with its runtime. Most of the dialogue is even kept exactly the same. It offers decent hentai scenes worth to enjoy, and it is not nearly as hardcore as the manga, which is why it's more easier to recommend for everyone, though I would stay away from it if you feel weak for blood and gore in general. Me personally, I like the manga better, not because it's the original, but because it's more in touch with the horror and has far more powerful way of telling the story and illustrating the sex scenes. And of course, because it offers way more hentai and different stories to experience. This is a manga I'm happy to have in my physical collection, whereas the anime is something I would have left for streaming online once and never touch it again kind of experience. It's not bad by any means, but it doesn't have that same magic as the manga, which brings me back to it from time to time. If you enjoy Jyoka's art, I also recommend another manga from him, Akuma Hyakka. It's a very short manga of a man who comes across a Siren, and that's pretty much all you need to know to figure out the rest. I put the full name down in the description. For those who don't know Japanese, there is English translated versions of both mangas out there, though I couldn't find anything official. And with that said, that is my review on Hachishaku Hachiwa Keraku Meguri. This is my first hentai anime manga review and I would very much appreciate any form of feedback. Did you enjoy it? Did I miss anything important to mention? Is there something I can improve upon? Let me know in the comments. Now if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to learn more about hentai anime and manga in the future. If you like what I do and want to help the channel grow, consider supporting the show on Patreon. With all said and done, I'll see you in the next video.